Brahma first created the nescient engagements of self-deception, the sense of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception and forgetfulness of one's real identity. Please repeat after me. Brahma first. Okay. Before the factual creation of the living entities in the different varieties of species, the conditions which the living entity in the material world has to live were created by Brahma. Unless a living entity forgets his real identity, it is impossible for him to live in the material world of life, in the material conditions of life. Therefore, the first condition of material existence is forgetfulness of one's real identity. And by forgetting one's real identity, one is sure to be afraid of death. Although the pure living soul is deathless and birthless, this false identification with material nature is the cause of false ownership of things which are offered by the arrangement of superior control. All material resources are offered to the living entity for his peaceful living and for the discharge of the duties of self-realization in conditioned life. But due to false identification, the conditioned soul becomes entrapped by the sense of false ownership of the property of the Supreme Lord. It is evident from this verse that Brahma himself is a creation of the Supreme Lord, and the 5 kinds of nescience which condition the living entities in material existence are creations of Brahma. It is simply ludicrous to think that the living entity to be equal with the Supreme Lord, with the Supreme Being, when one can understand that the conditioned souls are under the influence of Brahma's magic wand. Patanjali also accepts that there are 5 kinds of nescience as mentioned here. Okay, Hare Krishna devotees. The devotees of the Lord are so kind, so merciful, so compassionate, so generous. I beg your blessings that I may say something that is relevant and pleasing to Vaishnavas and the Supreme Lord. So here we read so far, or heard so far, that the Lord has been, we've been understanding about the complexities of the cosmic creation, the idea that the time, or the understanding that time, space, dimensions, realities are really complex for us, for our mind to actually understand. But one thing we can understand is that the Supreme Lord is time himself. And so the Lord gives himself to us as living entities in terms of when he creates the material world, time for us is limited. And that time has to be limited because when we're banished, well, we're not banished, we kind of walked out. We walked out of the spiritual world because of our envy. And so the Lord had to create an alternative reality for us, because that's what we wanted to live in, an alternative reality. I remember when my son was young, he came from school, and one of the things that you want to do as a good parent is teach your children to do things and leave things better than they find them. So when you come into school, from school, you have a shower, you change your clothes, and you have something to eat, and then you wash your dish and leave it nice and clean. Well, that day he wasn't having it. It's like, why do I have to do what you tell me? Why do I have to be? I don't want to be sort of under your control. I want to be independent. So anyway, he gave me a bit of lip, as they say, and he charged. I wasn't going to back down. So at that point he said, well, I'm going to report you to child services and I'm going to pack my bags and go. So I said, well, please do that. What else can I do? If you want to pack your bags, all 10 years of them, going like 21, so he packed his bags. And of course as a mother I'm thinking, oh, I don't want my child to go. But he went, and because I always like to have the last word, I said to him, take your Pokemon cards with you as well, because he was very attached to them. So off he went off, no idea where he was going to go, who he was going to take shelter of, how he was going to exist. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the nature of our condition. We, because of our envy, did not want to serve Krishna. Because there's that independent part of us the Lord gives all of us. Because love cannot be forced, love has to be given. And that is for up to the living entity. Do I wish to give my love to Krishna? And when I want to give my love to Krishna, I have attention, I have a good attitude, I have affection, I have a sense of, losing myself in giving the Lord. But because we have that independence and we want to misuse it, we have said, no, sorry, don't fancy doing that now. I fancy being the centre of attention. And so then, of course, the Lord has to go through these, for him it's nothing, it's a blink of an eye, but for we can see that the Lord has created this, what we call a perverted reality for us, because we want to enjoy separately from him. In order to do that, we have to forget our identity. So as Srila Prabhupada says, Brahma first created, he's got a hard job because he's got to put this illusion over us. And the first one is self-deception. Lying to ourselves, the truth of who we are. And then the sense of fear of death, because if you have self-deception, you think you're the controller, you're going to be here forever, and therefore that creates fear of death. And then from fear of death, or a sense of fear of death, remember Krishna says to Arjuna right at the end, do not fear and surrender to me. We are, ladies and gentlemen, we are driven by fear all the time, whether we like to accept it or not. And then of course anger after frustration, the illusory body concept, and forgetfulness of our real identity. So of course we know Brahma created this because not of malice, but because we actually wanted an alternative reality. We're like, well, I'm packing my bags, I'm off. You don't need to tell me what to do, I can do whatever I want. So the desire, envy comes with the desire to compete with Krishna, not to take but to serve, to be separate from Krishna. So, if you're having relationship issues, the root of all dysfunctional relationships is our dysfunctional relationship with Krishna. Isn't it? We try to fix our relationships with other people when we have conflict or strife or whatever. But it's an internal job. And so therefore, when we have dysfunctional challenges, and these challenges are often around being, exploited, or want to exploit others, we want to use, we want to abuse, we want to take. If things don't work out the way I like it, I'm not your friend mate anymore. So when we fix our relationship with Krishna, we fix our relationship with others. And to fix our relationship with Krishna is actually understanding what pleases him, what pleases Krishna. We have to understand the mind of Krishna. We have to understand who the Supreme Lord is, his personality. What is it about the Lord that we can really understand? And until we don't understand the Supreme Lord and his intentions, his thoughts, we will just want to be belligerent, And that belligerence is also self-envy, because when we have self-envy, we kind of spite ourselves. We sort of cut our nose off to spite ourselves. So what's the first one? The key mechanism. Well, actually these mechanisms are so fundamental. We should all really, really, really understand them, scrutinize them, and actually self-check and self-evaluate where we are at. So the first one is self-deception. This is a mistaken belief, this misidentity with my true nature. That my true nature is I'm not this body, I'm not the king of my castle. What I am is a spirit soul, and I'm eternal. And I'm part and parcel of Krishna. And real joy comes in humility and surrender. Now, sense of death, that comes because of our mistaken understanding of fear and anxiety. And that's all linked to mortality. The idea that, I might, mortality brings, the fear of mortality brings about, attachment for pleasure and possessions, and, we want to grab something. But actually what we're doing is we're sort of strengthening the prison house of where what we're trying to seek is actually entangling us more and more. Then anger out of frustration is this mistaken identity that, he got in my way, she got in my way, they got in my way, this isn't the way it should be. Of course, as devotees, if you're in a position of responsibility, you have a duty to ensure things are safe, things are conducted in a proper manner. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is our own internal understanding and evaluation. So anger is this thing that, it brings more entanglement, and it also brings a karmic reaction, because we know that anger and frustration and irritation, these are just simply us trying to own and control the material world. And then, of course, the fourth nescience, is the sense of false ownership. The idea that I want to own, I want to control, I want to possess, I want to possess people, I want to possess relationships, I want to possess things. And these things actually get us into heaps of trouble. And of course our attachment and aversion, I think I'm the controller, I'm the owner of this house. A parent wouldn't say to their child, well, off you go. This is my house. Do as I say. But I've done that, because I think I'm the owner of this house. But actually the devotee of the Lord says, this is an ashram, this is the Lord's home. So people can come and go. But hey ho, the dualities of life. Sometimes, as a parent, you're trying your best to set foundations for your children. You don't want them to leave the home, but you want them to follow, the rules of that universe, and that's what we're not doing. We haven't played ball with our real identity and our home. So of course we're going to be fish out of water. So the fifth mistaken identity is the illusory identity, the conception of belief, I'm only the body. And that's very, very strong, because we're in the body, we're contained in the body, so we're numbed out. We're numbed out, so we can't identify with the soul. Because the body is so encompassing. You can imagine the soul. How do you contain an unlimited soul, part and parcel of Krishna? But that unlimited soul has to be almost like pushed in like a jack in the box in the body. It's so constrained. Yet the body, ironically, ladies and gentlemen, is the tool that will help us to get out of our this material world. So as I said, Brahma created this universe not out of malice, but if we want to be separate from Krishna, then we have to forget our identity. Because if we don't forget our identity, this world is impossible to live in, isn't it? Yeah, when we have a little bit of knowledge or too much knowledge, we realize as devotees, hey, this place isn't worth hanging about. So as devotees, what does forgetfulness of our real identity, that I'm this body, what does that mean? For a material person, it really means this ignorance, this self-centered sense of who I am. And of course that brings exploitativeness. We forget that everything is owned and controlled by Krishna. But for a devotee of the Lord, we begin to realize this material world is a hellhole, and we've got to get out of it as soon as we can. But interestingly enough, for a devotee, when the devotee comes to peace with the material world, it isn't a hellhole anymore for them, actually. We can see the truth of what it is, but for a devotee, all they see is beauty and love and joy and strength and unlimited amounts of abundance, and because they can see Krishna everywhere. They can see Krishna's presence in everywhere. Krishna is the source of all opulence, wealth, strength, fame, beauty, intelligence, renunciation. So how can the devotee actually be separated from Krishna? In this material world, when our consciousness is in the right state of, if we're in the right state, we can never be separated from Krishna. So when we see beauty and all of those things, we become enriched and nourished. And when we see challenges, we have to go within and say, do I have to do something about it? Is it my duty? Or do I have to work on this? Do I have to be tolerant? Do I have to be patient? Do I have to be loving? What is it that I have to do? Because of course we're all here to grow. When the fear of death comes in, of course fear and anxiety comes in, possession comes in, the controlling behavior comes in. Anybody who's had a near-death experience, like my boss, when I work with her on judicial hearings, the challenge is always that you, based on the evidence presented to you, one needs to make a robust decision or an outcome. Of course, in the material world, we are full of limitations, the limitation to make mistakes, to be illusioned, to cheat, our imperfect senses. How can one even make a robust decision? And sometimes things will go well, sometimes appellants or the other party might not be happy with the outcome. And so there's anxiety. There's always thoughts of litigation around the corner, or making sure that whatever decision you make is a good one, that you don't sort of go into a mental thing about how the decision might affect somebody's life. So, my boss always goes, she's had a near-death experience, and she'll say, so what? Nobody died. Will it matter in a month? Will it matter in a week? Will it matter in a month? A year? And so here we can see that those who have experienced death do not have fear of it. But if we have fear of death, it's going to kind of, all these nesciences constrict us more and more and more. So with the devotee welcomes death, because the devotee thinks, when will I be with Krishna? When will I go back to the spiritual world? Or the devotee feels, well, it doesn't matter what I do, even if I use my body, no matter what, it's in the service of Krishna. So the devotee becomes not fearful of death, doesn't try to control the situation around them. The World Health Organization is saying that, and the United Nations, that in America, the large majority of children are dying at the death of their own hands, and that 50% of adults, and I see this in the hearings of young children, so many are experiencing anxiety at such a young age. This is so unnatural, isn't it? From the soul consciousness point of view, this is a very, very unnatural state. So we can see that the predictions of Kali Yuga, we can see that happening and unfolding in front of us, that young children are also feeling so much anxiety and nervousness. They haven't got anything to hook on to. You know, we're so lucky that we have the understanding, I'm not this body, you know, we have the association of the devotees, we have Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, all of these things keep us embedded. So then why is it that sometimes we're not happy, we're miserable? Because we're attached to this false sense of identification with the material nature. We begin eating, sleeping, defending. There's no room for Krishna or Bhakti. We want to possess, we want to take. But a devotee of the Lord feels complete gratitude. You know, the poverty consciousness that comes with us is simply a lack of, false identification. If you are embroiled in that nescience, you'll always think that there's never enough. But the devotee of the Lord understands that this false identification with material nature tells me I'm the center of the world, it's all down to me, and I have to do it myself. But the devotee of the Lord begins very much, because we're part of the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, the devotee of the Lord always prays like Brahma, my dear Lord, you know, please, to give service in this material world is very precarious, it's very unsteady, help me to execute your will, and because I'm powerless, please give me protection. So the devotee of the Lord is always focused on and endeavoring to understand that they are the soul and not the body, that the thoughts, words, actions are aligned to spirituality. Now, false ownership of the Lord's property, this is where we often get into trouble. This is, dear devotees, a deliberate disobedience and disregard to the Lord's property. This is mine. Prabhupada says it's the root of all sin, and in one lecture, Prabhupada says that it's a very risky place to be. Now, when we want to possess, when we want to control, when we want to exploit, when we have poverty consciousness, aversion, sometimes we have these feelings even in service. Why do we do that? Why are we having these feelings? Because we are so, could be that we're so eager, but reminding ourselves that actually the Supreme Lord is always in control. And what does the devotee do? The devotee, the spiritual attitude is Ishvashya idam sarvam yankincha jagadam jagat tena tena gunchita mahapritsu. Everything is owned and controlled by the Lord, therefore one should only accept that which is for one's quota. So not to accept other things knowing that they belong to the Supreme Lord. So that brings a sense of satisfaction. Shishivata Gopalanda, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Gopalai, Shila Prabhupada, anger and frustration comes, dear devotees, because for a materialist, you're thwarting my happiness. You're getting in the way of my happiness. But what that does is it actually entangles us more and more. So the only enjoyer we have to recognize as a devotee is the Supreme Lord. So, one of the prayers of Brahma, you know, how can we, as devotees, so we understand all of this, how can we pray to Krishna? Actually realizing we're so unqualified that somehow or another we ended up here. We're so ungrateful that we ended up in this material world, full of hypocrisy and quarreling and harsh speech and fear and doubt and pain and insensitivity and lack of gratitude. All of these things are deeply entrenched in us. So Brahma actually starts with praying for protection from material nature and illusion. It's interesting, isn't it? Because after he creates this nescience, he goes off and he needs to purify himself. Because these things, in a moment, in a flash, we are contaminated by them. Then Brahma asks for transcendental devotional service. That is the perfect state for us as devotees to be in, remembering that we're just an instrument, we're powerless in this situation, and that our only desire is to please and serve the Supreme Lord. Now, the Lord has already planted the seed into the universe. Our job is simply to manifest the Lord's will. How do we do that? We undertake penance. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what extra penance can we do every day that will enable us to remember Krishna? Because otherwise, in this material world, our consciousness will just simply be pulled down. Well, Prabhupada says the best penance is often devotional service. Is there anything more I can do that will help me remember Krishna? And then the ability to introspect and contemplate, because all suffering is an inside job. And we see the Lord of the universe, Lord in the universe and in all things. And guess what? The Lord actually takes great, great pleasure when we're fully dependent on Him. In the materialistic concept, if somebody is dependent on you, get away, you're cramming my space. But the Lord is actually so pleased when the devotee is dependent on Him. And the Lord, guess what? The Lord is a person, and He hankers for our love, our devotion, our loving exchanges. So Krishna consciousness actually brings us great, great hope. But we have to be very aware of our own attitudes, particularly because we know devotional service is the gateway out of this material world, but also to take others out of their suffering. So devotional service with false ego in the mode of goodness is we lose clarity, we have a sense of pride. So we have to be careful that we don't have pride in our service. Devotional service and false ego in the mode of rajas or in the mode of passion, we get attached, we get irritated, angry, and then of course false ego and with devotional service and ignorance is inertia, delusion. It's always never a good outcome. So the Lord is so kind, He completely reciprocates with us. The point is, when will we give up our impersonal tendencies so that we can and desire and have the intention to have a personal relationship with Him? So, am I willing to repair my relationship with Krishna? That's the question we have to ask ourselves every morning when we're chanting. When we're chanting, the thoughts come, this comes, that comes, the job comes, the irritation comes, something comes. And so, are we able to really focus our mind, exercise our mind, that at this point when I'm chanting, am I willing to repair my relationship? And that actually, dear devotees, gives us a sense of understanding how unqualified we are, because we have so many opportunities to repair this relationship with Krishna, yet we're so forgetful. So Prabhupada says in a lecture in 1968 that when we're chanting, we want to overcome this nescience. Krishna, please accept me. I have become envious of you. I've denied you. I've minimized you. I've been so ungrateful. I have no right to even ask you because I'm so unqualified. I have an ocean of faults. But I have faith that Krishna, my Guru, the devotee, somehow will help me or will petition on my behalf. If ever we feel alone in Krishna consciousness, we should know that there are devotees who love you and pray for you. They might not show you, they might not tell you, but you must have that trust, just as Lord Ram did in the Brahmanas. So, yes, I have turned my back on Krishna. Yes, I am ungrateful. Yes, I do suffer. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his mercy, unconditional love, he has given us the holy name. And the holy name is I suppose, the source of overcoming these challenges. So, what we're looking for, we already had, because Krishna, we can only overcome this message when we begin to understand our relationship with Krishna. That Krishna is so loving, he's so personal, he's so caring. How? Because of his pastimes. When we read Krishna's pastimes, we begin to become attached to Krishna and his devotees. Reciting the Shikshashtakam, genuine humility. Genuine humility isn't stupidity, dear devotees. Don't let somebody pull the wool over your eyes, but make sure that it's not your false ego evaluating that. It's coming from a place of real humility and surrender to Krishna, because Krishna is the source of all knowledge, remembrance, and understanding. So, how do we know Krishna is so kind? He's always protecting us. And when we read the prayers of the deliverance of the Yama Arjuna trees, Krishna gave so much joy to the residents. He forgave Brahma, he forgave Indra. Krishna swallowed the forest fire. He saved Nanda Maharaj. So these activities and pastimes of the Lord actually indicate to us that the Lord is a very personal, loving person. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us, and Prabhupada reinforces the point, that we must meditate on the personal form of the Lord. So this Kunjita Padam Sharanam, let my mind always be fixed on the Lord's feet. Please remove all ego. So, I was going to read something, but I'm going to stop now, because as always, probably over-plan and over-prepare. So the medicine in this real world, the disease of envy can be overcome in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 11, verse 23. We can become free from bondage simply by overcoming our envy. So please, if you get a chance, read the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra and his instructions of how we can overcome envy. So one of the ways, if you want to overcome envy, is to actually pray and surrender to Lord Ramachandra. So it's 8:25. I'm going to stop here and open up for questions or discussions.
Can I make a comment?
Thank you so much. Wonderful. In regard, you mentioned just briefly that in order to show the Krishna that we want him back, we need to do some tapasya. So part of the question is first that why only pain to the pain kind of satisfies Krishna, and then you can go back. Because, for example, fasting is mentioned in scriptures that of all the tapasyas, fasting is most difficult. And it says also that by fasting you can control all the senses but tongue and belly, because by fasting desire to eat increases more and more. And also this puts you in bodily consciousness, at least that's my base. So I feel more in bodily consciousness when I do such a kind of tapasya. I cannot focus on Krishna. It isn't easy to forget about this, not fast, but chant more rounds. And I can chant without thinking of eating, for example. So, in one sense, is Krishna pleased really with this attitude of this tapasya, particularly fasting, without proper consciousness?
I think each one of us have our different challenges, don't we? And it's working out what is it that I need to do. If I can't control my tongue, then I have to learn to maybe be silent. It might be that I have to control what I love eating. Yes, fasting is absolutely critical because it helps us to sort of stop identifying the body's needs all the time. But unless it's like life and death. I think Prabhupada always says, put your health first, but only we will know our ability to exercise our muscle of free will, willpower, So in here, Prabhupada says that the best penance is devotional service. Engage your mind in thinking of Krishna, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Padasevanam. So Vani Gurukatana, Kathani, Shravana, Katham, that in every moment, every waking moment of sleeping and thinking and eating, and I'm thinking of Krishna in everything that I'm doing. That's the penance, isn't it? That's actually training and molding the mind. But can I at all times think of Krishna? I think that's where Srila Prabhupada wants us to go back to. That's where Krishna wants us to go back to. That in every moment we can see Krishna and we can think of Krishna. I mean, in a challenging moment, when you say, okay, Krishna, you're teaching me something, but Krishna is never far away. He's either he's either protecting his devotee or he's annihilating the demons within our heart. But he's always there. It's like you cannot be separate from Krishna. That's the penance, actually, Prabhu. And devotional service enables us to do that. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu. Rajana, Prabhu, you had a comment?
Yeah, well.
And you have a giggle as well.
Yeah. The one thing that occurs to me is the real medicine is the kirtan. Actually, like this morning. It's sort of a Mother Kalingana would always say, even if you've got, and they do it before meetings in the GBC, they always do kirtan to purify the atmosphere, to conquer over those animosities that you may have with each other. And Mother Kalingana would always say, that's the cure for any feelings of sadness, happiness, or whatever. Just join in the kirtan. It's the best. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, very good point. The ladies have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mataji, for the class. I would just humbly like to submit this. Maybe you can accept or reject as you like. But Krishna is not only realized through tapasya. Krishna is also realized through enjoyment. Kirtan is enjoyment, prasadam is enjoyment, and Krishna's mercy is prasadam. Association of devotees brings so much peace, satisfaction to the heart. That's enjoyment. So when we dovetail everything in Krishna's service, we are enjoying. Otherwise, why we are here? The nature of the soul is anandamaya vyasa. We're looking for happiness, looking for enjoyment. We are not torturers of the flesh in order to realize Krishna. We are trying to understand completely, in all aspects, Krishna's nature, Krishna's leela, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's mercy. So that's just my humble submission. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're absolutely correct, Mother. But we can only get to that stage when we actually understand and we have joy and our consciousness is risen. But until then, when we're flooded by the 5 aspects of nescience, ask somebody who's so absorbed in ownership, ask somebody who's so absorbed in bodily platform, ask somebody who's in deep fear. They'll have those challenges. But of course, it's the same remedy as well for others. Absolutely, yes. Thank you for your comment. Much appreciated. Okay, it's 8:30 on the dot. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada,